First, I would like to thank the organizer once again here in Estonia and also from Taiwan. This is my second visit. I never know that I would be back so quickly. I came here for the first time last year in September, and I fall in love with the city. So I hope that we should finish early and go out to see the city today in the afternoon. Anyway, my talk today will focus on Thailand's new media landscape and the impacts on political crisis and democracy. I will talk about the impact on social media in particular, as much as what has happened in Thailand too, because you cannot separate the two things. And obviously, this talk would be about how social media, all kinds of social media, has caused an impact on either positively and negatively in Thailand political landscape. And I'm not sure whether you have any latest information on political situation in Thailand. Have been in my country, even though I am based in Kyoto right now. But I think it's just so difficult to talk about Thai politics, because it changes on a daily basis. And hopefully I'll do a good job here in trying to link the two issues together. But I think it is important to say right at the beginning that before we talk about the social media, I might spend just a few minutes talking about Thai politics, the nature of Thai politics. And I could say that Thai politics had long been dominated by certain groups. In Thailand, we call traditional elite, conservative elites, royalist elites also, or the old establishment. And the part of the success for them, to maintain their power position in the past so many decades has been the ability. Part of it is their ability to control mainstream media, shaping the way in which the information was shared, circulated, and also manipulated. And for a long time, both printed and broadcast media has been exploited to serve so many political purposes. I'm sure that this is not unique for Thailand. It has happened anywhere, in everywhere, and also in the context of Southeast Asia as well. For example, if you look at the successive military regimes in Thailand and the paramount role of the Thai monarchy, for example, these two phenomena has come to define Thailand's political structure. From the need to justify so many military coups in Thailand, to the need to safeguard the status of the monarchy, the media has become so important in that process, in guaranteeing their political power. Just an information that Thailand has had military coup, 18 military coups since 1932, since Thailand abolished absolute monarchy in 1932. I am so proud to say that Thailand have still hold that record in Southeast Asia of having the most military coups. Singapore, you should follow. So and as I said, also in the process, social media, it's mainstream media has been a part of for the elite to control politics. But at the same time, Thailand had changed so much too in the past decades. I don't have time to talk about how Thailand had changed. Just enough time to talk about the economic boom starting in the 1970s, right until the millennium. Also, with that, it came with the expansion of a middle class in Thailand too. Plus, the arrival of the globalization, all which have transformed the way media has acted and reacted, to political developments. And in particular, I would like to focus mainly from 2005 onward, that when the political crisis really took place. 2005, that led to the military coup in 2006. And since 2006 up until 2014, Thailand has fallen deeper into a political crisis. Social media has played a large part for that. The argument for me is that new developments in the media have directly affected the consolidation of democracy. And I would focus today in three areas. The first one is the rise of social media in Thailand, the emergence of alternative media, and also the influence of foreign media coverage. But before I go a little bit further, I would like to come back to another kind of like main argument as well, the way we look at the media, especially in the context of Thailand. I'd like to argue that maybe we might be a little bit different from what we have seen in the West, in the US, in Europe. But the Thai media institutions, to me, I think these are political actors, or political institutions. And I say this based on their role, behavior, and also assignment. And some of these roles have assisted, both in the process of democratic consolidation, and at the same time, some have worked, in the opposite direction, meaning as an obstacle to democratization, particularly in the case of Thailand. Again, for the case of Thailand, there are three broad types of media. When I say that media as political actors, right? The first one, you can see that, in the past few decades, if you would see the role of media and its intervention in politics, the first role you would see in the case of Thailand is that the media could play a role as an agent of stability in time of political stalemate. There's so many times that we had so many crises, and then there could be some sort of media trying to write some sort of report that would pave the way for reconciliation for different political factions in Thailand. So that would be the first role. Second one, it could also serve as an agent of restraint by highlighting some critical issues facing the country, so as to remind the government of the government at the moment, of the day, too quickly tackling them before they could turn into a serious problem, right? And third, also, the Thai media, and I think rather quite relevant to the current situation in Thailand, could act as an agent of social change, as a cushion that prevents violence as a result of that change, and indeed in influencing certain directions of social change that could be favorable to either the government and the opposition. And I think here that where social media, alternative media, could come in and then could kind of assist in the process of social change, because I do believe that Thailand is facing a critical transition. I hope that I have time to talk about it later, but if you're familiar with Thai politics, you would know that the king, is one of the most important, the monarchy is one of the most important institutions in Thailand. And the current king, who has been the longest reigning monarch in the world, his era is coming to an end. And because of that, it kind of produced a lot of, anxiety on the part of the traditional elite, as I said, using the king to hold on to power in the past few decades. So we coming to an end of that, leading to another transitional period. Social media is so crucial, is so important for that. Now, using social media as a political weapon, or as looking at it as a political institution, is not really a new thing in Thailand. There are so many series of methods used to control information from the media. For example, the first one, there's so many politicians, political institutes that extended their direct domination over state media. It was quite evident during the military regimes, aside from the fact that the military in Thailand possesses its own broadcasting channel. So in Thailand, we have 4 or 5 main channels, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. 2 of them owned by the military, which is Channel 5 and Channel 7. So it is quite important. It has served as a mouthpiece for the military, of course. And through this channel, the political elites, military elites, chose what kind of message to be aired, embargo or restricted. And often they cited the need to do so for the sake of national security. Second one, the state can also embark on using televised media, in particular, to provide a regular platform in showcasing the activities of, for example, the Thai monarchy, which become a part of an entrenched royal propaganda. So, up until now, it has been so many years, in fact. Once again, if you're familiar with Thai politics, you would know that every 8 p.m. in Thailand, you are forced to watch royal program, for maybe half an hour. For example, the king went to this, the queen went to that. It has been going on for so long. The daily royal news, as I said, 8 p.m. has been broadcast for many decades now, commanding a one-way top-down messages from the palace to the public. So, but again, it had changed. And as I said at the beginning, because of the three phenomena, for the interest of time, I will go very quickly into it. The first one is the social media. Now, let's look at the statistic a little bit first. From 2012 to 2013 here, if you could see that, Thailand total population is 66 million, and we have had internet users for up to 25 million. That's quite a lot, including, social media. Thailand social network user up to 18 million. This number is very significant, which I will explain to you later. But I mean, it is enough to say that the rise of social media here, such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, represented a catalyst in the transformation of the way in which information is distributed and shared in Thailand, and the impact on political situation as well. Different political camps from the government, opposition, royal family, as I said, also jump into this political ring to defend their position using social media as a favorite channel. And as a consequence, social media has become a significant part of it. Because, for the first time, Thai people are able to have a direct and, to a certain extent, equal access to political information, right? Because of the nature of social media, it's go everywhere. Unlike in the past, that information was strictly controlled by the elite. For the first time, they have that access to political information. Access to diverse sources of information, which permit them to compare, contents, and make decisions, examine the issue from alternative viewpoints, or even challenge the information controlled by the Thai state. Secondly, social media also make information affordable, pervasive, and available. Therefore breaking the walls of information sources once protected by the traditional elite. And lastly, it may contribute toward consolidating the democratization process too. This is because social media has the power to tear down certain barriers and allow people to a freedom of expression, which was previously unavailable. Now going back to Facebook once again, I mean, I use this quotation from someone writing in the internet. If Facebook was a country, its capital city would be Bangkok. Because Thailand has over, as I said here, 8.5 million, in fact, user, which make it 16 biggest Facebook in the world. Well, I mean, Bangkok in itself, as a capital, has the most Facebook user in the world, as a capital of the as a capital of a country. But this large number, 18.5, making Thailand number 16 of overall user of Facebook of Thailand, right? And you can see here 9.3 female, 9. I mean, it's almost quite equal between the two genders. Twitter in Thailand also 2 million, average 5.5 tweet a day, 200,000 active user a day. Total video on YouTube by Thai people 5.3 million, average new 2,500 upload video a day. And Line, of course, we have a user, it depends on, what time of the year. But I mean, enough to say that we have a sizable number, 80 million users, comparing with 240 million users globally. Line has become so popular in Thailand that at one point, the Thai government has threatened Thai Line user of not talking about Thai politics, especially those could be perceived as insulting the Thai monarchy, because, you could be charged of, lèse majesté. I will talk about lèse majesté, which is so important for this particular talk as well. Now, through Facebook, many Thai people has become like active citizen. They can articulate their opinion and, even establish their own perspective, as well as asserting and regulating the way in which they are participating in politics. And so in so many ways, the battle over the control of information may have seemed to move away, from traditional media to online social networks. Leading politicians, agents of, civil society organizations, representatives of independent institutions, and academics like myself, we turn to Facebook and Twitter. I myself have my own Facebook, and I have 5,000 friends with something like 30,000 followers, so it becomes such a good platform, even for academics like myself to, to put across a message as well. So, I mean, for example, here I give an example of, our Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra, and this is her Facebook, and and also together with this is the the leader of the opposition party, opposite Wecha Chiwa, as well. But now have a look at how social media contributed toward consolidation of Thai democracy. Very quickly, I come up with 4 or 5, reasons. The first one is that the nature of social media, relatively free, and unrestrained, allows sources of information to diversify, as I said, alleviating, the previously authoritarian condition of the Thai media society. Second, social media is increasingly used as a stage for political campaign, seen in the establishment of numerous political groups with specific agendas and followers. We have so many new groups coming up each day on social media, and this group, have been designed to act as some sort kind of call for, followers or supporter. In particular, if they would like to launch any campaign. We have something like the Thai pro-democracy and peace-loving groups in Sweden, which has been, has a lot of people, follow up, thousands of people, and also the network of relatives and victims of lèse majesté law. Now, in 2011, I myself also launched a campaign. Please forgive my haircut because that's so stupid. That in 2000, but it was so popular in 2011, trust me. I launched a campaign, but now this is very serious, and I put the name of this guy, Agong, who is very briefly a Thai Chinese guy, 62-year-old, who had been accused of lèse majesté because he allegedly sent 4 text messages to someone in Thailand, and that person went to the police station and have the police arrested him because the messages deemed insulting to the king and the queen of Thailand. Sent out 4 text messages which they could not prove whether he sent it or not. They put him in jail for 20 years. That's it. So, I mean, one day when I woke up, I thought, but Thailand has gone too far now. So I decided to launch this campaign on Facebook, and within 24 hours, thousands of people did the same thing. So eventually, it kicked off, and eventually I had thousands of people sending photo of them, with their hand up like that, sending over to me. I managed to put everything together and produce a book on this. And of course, the profit from this project was given to this poor man who eventually died in prison a year later of stomach cancer. So anyway, well, just enough to tell you that this is social media can be powerful and can raise awareness, and also play a part in political activities. Second one, and I'll go very quickly because my time is up. The emergence of alternative media. I will not go into detail what alternative media means in Thailand, what about the definition, but I think enough to say that the changing local conditions in Thailand to have opened up the alternative media to thrive, and as a result, there's also many attempts on the part of the Thai state to try to curb the activity of alternative media as well. Alternative media, by its name, it means that's something unconventional, something can go against what the state force you to believe. So I mean, there is kind of like quite a dangerous side of alternative media as well. In recent time, alternative media has been everywhere in Thailand, particularly through web page, political blogs, non-mainstream magazine, and so on and so forth. I just want to show you one thing. This website, Pracha Thai, even though it's in Thai, but there's also an English version as well of Pracha Thai. which is become a #1 alternative media, where you can find new information which you could not find anywhere else, especially mainstream media. And in particular, raising a very difficult issue like lèse majesté law, you can actually find it here. But because of this, it become, as I said, it's become a target of the state as well. And you would hear a lot of absurd story coming out of this alternative media. For example, the editor of Prasha Thai, a Thai lady, she was charged of lèse majesté as well because she allowed anyone to write comment on her blog, and she didn't even have, and she was charged because she did not move fast enough to delete insulting comments. So, for example, something like that. Time really ran up as well. The last thing I have to, allow me 2 minutes. That I think is quite important apart from alternative media. And I do not have time to talk about alternative media in the form of television, which has become a new phenomenon in Thailand too. But the very last thing is international news coverage had also become a new phenomenon in Thailand. It's not because international news media has never reported anything controversial or contentious in Thailand. It has done so, but I think particularly this point in time, with the changing, political and social landscape, I think for the first time, international news and international journalists has done quite a good job in trying to, give a news source, so many news sources of information. Believe it or not, during the crackdown in Thailand in 2010, people who live in Thailand did not have any access to the right information because, domestic news was so much manipulated by the state. These people have to seek, international coverage. For example, they would turn to CNN, BBC, to look into the correct information, what happened, in Thailand. Lately, for example, with the current situation in Thailand too, with the protests, on the street of Bangkok, leading newspaper in the world, for example, Washington Post also has, came up with a number of critical comments on Thailand, the Thai situation, or even urged, the U.S. president to act fast, in order to contain the scope of political violence in Thailand too. My last note is that, these international media, they have also worked under extreme condition because, there's two ways to look at this. If they would want to report truthfully and everything, including whatever happened to the military, to the monarchy, then they have to do it outside of Thailand. Otherwise, they could be charged of lèse majesté once again, or they could be imprisoned. But if they choose to remain in Thailand, then they have to compromise. They have to kind of practice self-censorship so that they could remain in the country. But you see, I mean, this has become a dilemma for international media and also journalists in Thailand. At one point, at the foreign correspondent clubs in Thailand, which sponsor an anti-government activist to give a talk on the monarchy, and the content was perceived as being once again as insulting to the monarchy. Not only the speaker was charged of lèse majesté, but the whole committee of the Foreign Correspondent Club of Thailand has been charged too. It just go really bizarre and absurd. I leave you with this photo. It's quite interesting because it's not only journalists reporting news, but also, I mean, there's a number of journalists coming out with controversial publication as well. For example, I don't know whether you have heard Paul Hanley's book, The King Never Smiled. He used to be a journalist publishing this book, which has been banned in Thailand. And, more and more, journalists now starting to talk about what's happening inside of the Thai palace, which has always been a taboo. This article, for example, written by my good friend Hamish MacDonald, an Australian journalist, for the first time delve into the private life of Thai prince with his beloved dog, and then that birthday kinky video clip that have been leaked out in the internet. Anyway, I'll just would be happy to take comments and questions. Thank you so much.
Pavin, just a very quick question. The internet penetration in Thailand is high. The social networks are used by a lot of people.
Yep.
Do you have any study that actually says for what the social networks are used? Because like some studies say that most of the people using, like for example, Facebook is to publish their picture of a pet, and YouTube to like a drinking party with their friends, and Twitter about going for a coffee with somebody. So how much of these people who are really using the social networks are interested in getting different opinion, different political approach, and they really
Yeah, that is a good question. You know, even though I said that, you know, there has been a widespread use of this social media. You know, I mean, I would, with your, Ajahn, with your question, I would say yes, yes, yes to the three questions that during the night, last night, when I woke up, you know, went to toilet, I even came back to check my Facebook, whether I have like 2,000, you know, like, click or not. But people continue to look into their own circle rather than to, you know, look across whatever would be different from your own. You know, people would continue to, to say nice thing about themselves without learning from different sources, which I think it might not be, it might not contribute positively to the political development in Thailand. In many ways, it could even deepen, you know, crisis, because you would only think that your opinion, your perspective is correct, without even compare it to, you know, whatever different from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.